welcome back to my Evilness podcast or to my Evilness channel. Today we will be talking about the true crime case of the Grimes sisters. On the 28th of December 1956, Barbara Grimes, who was 15 at the time, and Patricia Grimes, who was 13 at the time, went to the Love Me Tender movie starring Elvis for the 15th time because they loved Elvis. They left their home at 7:30 p.m. and had no more than $2 on them. The sisters were meant to be home by 11:45 if they decided to stay and see the second screening of the movie. Their mother Loretta and her friend Dorothy were also at the movie, and she saw them at the food counter, and the girls seemed happy and were sitting behind them, but they only stayed for the first screening. However, the sisters failed to return home at 11:45 p.m, and Loretta was worried, so she sent her two older children to the bus stop near their house where the girls would have gotten off the bus. So the older children waited as 3 buses passed until 2 a.m, but Barbara and Patricia were nowhere to be seen. So they went home and told Loretta that they were not there. Loretta then called the police, and in the days that followed, they launched one of the biggest citywide searches in Chicago's history, with neighbouring cities and countries joining the search, but nothing was found. After this search, there were reports of sightings of the girls from different cities all over America, as far as Nashville, Tennessee. This led to the theory that the sisters ran away to go to see and meet Elvis. This theory garnered so much attention that Elvis himself went onto the radio and made a plea for the girls to return home. But this theory was factually disproven, basically meaning that facts of the case proved that it did not happen that way. Loretta never thought that her daughters had ran away, as they left everything behind: clothes, money, food. They literally took nothing. They had just gotten an AM radio for Christmas, which they loved, and that was also left behind. On the 22nd of January 1957, the bodies of Barbara and Patricia Grimes were found in Willow Springs. A man named Leonard Prescott was driving along German Church Road when he saw the two bodies on the side of the road. At first, he thought that they were mannequins, so he went home and got his wife, and together they went back and looked at the bodies, and this is when they realised that they weren't mannequins, but in fact human bodies. Barbara and Patricia's bodies were found naked. Barbara was face down, with Patricia's body on top of Barbara's, but face up. Their faces had been not attacked, but picked at, I guess is the right word, by animals, which left their faces quite damaged. By 1:30 p.m, the Prescotts, Leonard and his wife, called the police and reported the bodies. Police determined the bodies had been there for approximately 2 weeks, since about the 9th or 10th of January. The bodies had not been found previously due to heavy snowfall, which had only recently began melting. An autopsy showed that Barbara and Patricia died within 4 hours of going missing, as they still had undigested food in their stomachs. This was one of the facts that debunked the runaway theory. There was no obvious cause of death, and their deaths were ruled as murder, but with no explanation to the cause. They said they died of shock due to exposure of the elements. The coroner, Walter McCarran, was badly criticised for this. People felt that the report was botched. After Barbara and Patricia's bodies were found, there were quite a few suspects, one of these being Edward Lee Bedwell, who did actually confess to the murders, but there was not enough evidence to convict him, and Bedwell recanted his confession soon after. It has also been said he was coerced by the County Cook's Sheriff's Department, and he was cleared of any involvement in the case. The case went cold after this until 2012, when Ray Johnson, who is an author and former criminal investigator, came up with a new lead. When Ray was looking into the murder of Bonnie Lee Scott, which happened in Addison, he discovered the case of Bonnie Lee Scott to be very similar to that of the Grimes sisters. Bonnie was only 15 when she was murdered. She was also found naked. There were non-lethal marks on Bonnie's body, which were very similar to those found on Barbara and Patricia. The man responsible for Bonnie's murder, Charles Leroy Melkist, apparently had made a phone call to Loretta bragging about the fact that he had killed her daughters and gotten away with it. When Loretta initially receives this call, it was anonymous. But when Loretta later heard his voice in an interview, she knew instantly it was the man that called her. She said he had an unforgettable voice, and she could never forget it. Apparently there was also a third girl who was taken with the Grimes girls, who was 14 at the time, but didn't come forward because she was scared and didn't know what to do. She did eventually agree to talk to authorities, so obviously lived after her ordeal, but she remains anonymous. This girl also said that the man had an unforgettable voice, very distinctive. Charles was convicted for Bonnie's murder and was sentenced to 99 years, but he only served 11 years, and when he was released, he married and had 2 children. He died in 2010. Walter Krantz was another suspect. He was a steam fitter and self-declared psychic who had a vision of the 2 girls. After a night drinking, he called the police complaint room on the 15th of January and told an operator that the sisters were dead and their bodies could be found in Lyons Township. Krantz wouldn't give his name, but the call was traced to near his home. When the girls' bodies were found a week later, they were only around a mile from where he had said, but during numerous interrogations, he denied any involvement and was eventually released without charge. A third suspect in the case was Max Flegg. He was 17 years old, and due to his age and Illinois laws, he was not allowed to take a polygraph test. Captain Ralph Pettigrew convinced Flegg to do it anyway. Flegg confessed to the murders, but because the test wasn't legal, he couldn't be charged. He was released due to lack of evidence, but was later jailed for the murder of another young woman. Loretta died on the 8th of December 1989 at the age of 83, never knowing what happened to her daughters. And to this day, the case remains unsolved. So thank you guys so much for listening or watching today. I'll try and get another one very soon. A like or subscribe would be amazing. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Thanks again. Bye.